Welcome to Card Market Catalyst, your go-to source for everything related to football card investing. Whether you're tracking the latest market trends or looking for the next big prospect, we've got you covered. If you enjoy the insights, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the show, and follow us for all our future episodes.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a highly anticipated clash, Group I of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. But we're looking at this group through a very specific lens, and that is the sports card market. We're going to be talking about concrete market strategy, how to uncover serious upside, and identifying the traps that so many collectors fall into. Now, before we jump in, just a quick reminder. Everything we're discussing today is an analysis of market upside and my own personal assessment. It's not financial or investment advice, okay? Always do your own research before you make any moves.
All right, let's get into it. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll establish exactly why Group I is the card market's group of death. Then we'll analyze the hidden market risks of those big established stars, followed by the massive upside potential of the younger talent. After that, we hit the purge, our sell strategy, and who honestly just has to go. And finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with a definitive ranking of the top 5 card market favorites.
So let's kick things off with part 1, the card market group of death. Group I is just an absolute minefield. I mean, you've got massive names like Mbappé, Haaland, and Odegaard all colliding here, so the card market is going to be incredibly volatile. If we look at the bookmakers, they've set a pretty clear hierarchy. France is the overwhelming heavy favorite to win the group at 67%, with Norway trailing at 23%. Senegal is sitting there as a dangerous dark horse at 10%, while Iraq is the heavy underdog. But as collectors, we have to ask ourselves a deeper question. Do the players that dominate on the pitch actually dominate the investment upside?
And that brings us to our core contrarian premise for today. It is so incredibly tempting to look at a roster featuring Mbappé and Haaland and just assume that parking your money in their cards is a surefire win. But assuming the most famous, heavily favored players in this group are automatically the best buys? Honestly, that is a massive trap.
Which brings us nicely to part 2, the market risk of established stars.
We really need to break down why household names might not be the smartest place to park your capital right now. It all comes down to understanding what the market already expects versus what actually catches the market by surprise. Take a guy like Kylian Mbappé. His card prices are already sky high, right? He gives you a high floor, meaning relative safety, but a very low upside because absolute greatness is entirely expected from him. Contrast that with Michael Olise. Olise is significantly cheaper. He has a lower floor, sure, but his upside is basically a rocket ship. If he has a breakout tournament, his prices could multiply in a way Mbappe's simply never will. So the crucial takeaway here is knowing when to just hold. Based on the analysis, megastars like Mbappé, Erling Haaland, and Ousmane Dembélé are strictly holds. Why? Well, their current card prices are already elite. Norway's return to the World Cup, their first since 1998 by the way, is being marketed almost entirely around Haaland. The market already knows he's there. And Dembele's cards have already surged recently because he's finally found some consistency. For these guys, future success is totally baked into their expensive card prices. They give your collection a really safe core, but there is virtually zero upward surprise potential.
All right, let's pivot to part 3, the upside potential of young talents.
If the established stars are just holds, the real financial opportunity is definitely with the explosive young talent. Let's look at this matrix, because this is where things get super exciting. First up, Antonio Nusa from Norway. He's currently cheap and literally the perfect profile of a market sleeper. Then we've got Désiré Doué from France. His prices are rising, and a deep run by that stacked French squad could be a massive catalyst for him. Over in Senegal, Lamine Camara represents the next generation of their football. He's a starter, and his entry point is incredibly affordable. And finally, Ali Jassim from Iraq. He's probably the most technically interesting player on an underdog team. It's a high-risk flyer, for sure, but if Iraq overperforms even a little bit, a player like Jassim gets a sudden, massive spotlight. Lower buy-in prices mixed with huge breakthrough potential, that's what makes these youngsters prime market targets.
I actually want to zero in on Antonio Nusa for a second because he is the textbook definition of a market sleeper. We're talking about a highly talented, under-the-radar player with low-priced rookie cards just waiting for the right moment to break out globally. Nusa has absolutely everything the hobby loves. He's young, he's blazing fast, and he plays the spectacular, explosive offensive style out on the wing. If Norway pulls off a surprise run to the quarterfinals, Nusa could easily be one of the single biggest winners of the entire World Cup.
Moving on to part 4, sell strategy. who actually has to go? Now that we know who we want to target, we have to talk about who we're letting go of. This quote right here is our golden rule for the purge. Collectors must distinguish between player career and market potential. And honestly, there is no better example of this than Sadio Mane. Total respect to Mane, he is an absolute legend of African football, but he's 34 years old. This is almost certainly his final World Cup. The vast majority of his market value was built years ago, so while his career has been phenomenal, his market potential has completely hit its ceiling. And that leads us to our specific sell candidates. Mane, like we just said, is on the aging curve with maxed out value. Next is Nicholas Jackson from Senegal. The market is still pricing him based on unproven potential, but his performances are just highly inconsistent. The risk of a disappointing tournament for him is really high. Then we've got Kingsley Coman from France. Fantastic player, but with rising stars like Olise, Doué, and Barcola eating up minutes, Coman's playtime is going to be limited. No playtime means no catalyst for his card prices. Finally, Kalidou Koulibaly. Much like Mane, an amazing career, but purely from an investment standpoint, the World Cup is likely your best exit point before the growth catalyst completely vanishes.
All right, we've made it to part 5, the top 5 card market favorites.
Let's synthesize all of this into a definitive ranking. Coming in at spot 5, we have Lamine Camara as a buy. He is practically a seedling right now, the cornerstone of Senegal's next generation with room for massive growth. Plus, his cards are incredibly affordable today, making him a fantastic entry-level investment. At spot 4, it's Martin Odegaard. He is a hold, acting as a true anchor for your collection. His long-term profile is incredibly stable, backed up by his leadership at Arsenal. Plus, his cards are still valued significantly cheaper than his teammate Erling Haaland, giving him a way better risk-to-reward ratio if you're a long-term collector.
Taking the number 3 spot, our favorite sleeper, Antonio Nusa. He is a screaming buy. His explosive profile as a winger and those cheap rookie cards mean that any success Norway finds on the pitch will almost certainly translate into a massive spike in his card market. He is the ultimate low-risk, high-reward play in this entire group.
At number 2, we've got France's Désiré Doué, also a buy. A lot of collectors are already viewing him as the next big future superstar for France. And because that French squad is so incredibly deep and heavily favored to go far, Doué doesn't even need to carry the team on his back. A deep tournament run by France acts as a massive natural accelerator for his already rising cards. He's got a huge World Cup ceiling.
And finally, the number 1 investment opportunity in Group I, Michael Olise. Olise is a buy, and he easily earns this top spot because he offers the absolute best mix of everything a collector wants. He brings enormous momentum, his talent is undeniable, his market price is still way below that Mbappé and Dembélé tier, and his World Cup upside is just astronomical. He is perfectly positioned to be the breakthrough player of the tournament. So, that wraps up our card market analysis of Group I. Now, I want to turn it over to you. Will Michael Olise be the biggest winner of this World Cup, making early investors look like absolute geniuses? Or is Kylian Mbappé just going to do what he always does and utterly dominate the headlines once again? Make your predictions down in the comments. Remember, always do your own research before jumping into the market. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Card Market Catalyst. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into football card investing, make sure to like and subscribe.